The information contained in this video is intended for educational purposes. We are not responsible for any damage to your device resulting from improper disassembly or installation. Proceed at your own risk.
Today I got a quick and easy one for you. This is changing out the screen on an iPhone 6. This one's been kind of glitching out and we've just about lost the LCD completely. And we're going to do it today using the pre-assembled display that has all the small parts built in. So you don't have to move anything over from this other than the fingerprint scanner, which is relatively easy. So all the camera, the back panel, all that stuff is already built in. Makes it a lot faster. This is a replacement screen that developed an intermittent problem where bars would appear on the screen and the touchscreen stopped responding. So sometimes when you'll see this kind of problem, it'll be because your connection is not plugged in properly on the inside of the phone. So I would always check that first. But in this case, we ruled that out. So what we're going to do is go ahead and remove the two pentalobe screws on the bottom end of the phone next to the charging port. And once you get these out, you can use a thin plastic pry tool to go underneath the bottom end of the display. Be careful and make sure that you don't push too far with your pry tool as you're going around the edges. We just want to go in about 1/8 of an inch or so to make sure that we release it from the housing. If you work your way up about 2/3 to 3/4 of the length along the side, it'll make it a lot easier to open up. And then we'll just lift it from the bottom and find something to prop this up against. You don't really want to put any excessive stress on those cables in case you need to return it if it's defective or something like that. We'll have two screws down here that need to be removed from this cover plate. And when you get that out of the way, you'll be able to disconnect the battery. Make sure you go just underneath the metal tab on the connector here and not too far down beyond that. And this will lift straight up and you can just kind of move it out of the way. Now up here at the top end, we're going to have 5 screws that need to be removed in order to disconnect the display assembly. These are all different size screws, so make sure that you keep them in order. They are not interchangeable. Once you have the screws out, you can go ahead and remove this cover plate. And then we've got 4 cables that need to be disconnected. And then we can separate the display from the housing. Now the only thing that we need to change out here is the fingerprint scanner because it is unique to the phone. So in order for yours to work, you need to retain it. Even though our replacement part came with the fingerprint scanner, it is not going to do us any good. And you definitely do not want to install that because it's going to cause problems when you restore the phone. We are going to go ahead and transfer over these little pads that are on the back of the display connectors if you don't have them. It's kind of a black foamy adhesive material. Now, if you are not able to remove these successfully, and you can see this is the easiest way I've found to do it, is kind of go underneath the edge with the razor blade and use a very gentle sawing motion until you get underneath part of it, and then you can usually peel them off. But if you don't, you can always cut a piece of electrician's tape or kapton tape to the same size. The reason that you want to replace these beyond preventing accidental grounding is also so that you have a little extra cushion on the back of the connector to hold it in place. So if the phone happens to experience any type of shock, it's much less likely that these are going to become disconnected if you have these pads on the back because they push up against that back plate on the inside. All right, so once we get those swapped across, we're going to remove 2 screws down here from the bottom. I would recommend that you start with your new part when you remove the home button. That way you can kind of get a feel for how this comes off of the frame. If you end up damaging your home button cable, you are not going to have a fingerprint scanner, and you're also going to have some pretty serious problems when you go to restore the phone. The first thing we're going to do is unplug the connector. And now the next thing is we're going to need to get underneath the adhesive and there will be adhesive around the ring where the home button is located. There will also be adhesive underneath the connector, which you'll see here shortly. I usually just pull the tape back, or the plastic cover, and you can push the home button through the frame, but don't go too far because it is attached to this little cable that we need to get underneath. Again, be very careful with this. If you end up cutting it, it will not function anymore, and you're going to have some more serious problems than a broken screen. So again, practice on the new part first, because we're going to set that one aside and then salvage our old one. And this is where it's really crucial that you don't cause any damage to that cable. So again, remove the cover plate and disconnect this piece right here. Same as the first procedure. And get the camera to focus. There we go. So you can always release that part of the adhesive first, and then there's not much holding the home button in place, but if you can, you want to retain the adhesive that goes around that rubber boot. If it happens to get damaged in the process, the adhesive part, see my video where I replaced the adhesive on the iPhone 5 and 5C. The procedure is very similar to this one. So once we have the button moved across, we'll go ahead and plug everything in. Make sure it lines up straight on the bottom, just like it was in the original display. And then we'll go ahead and replace the cover plate. From here, putting the phone back together is pretty much the reverse of the disassembly. Go ahead and plug these cables in, make sure they're seated properly, and try to push evenly across the entire connection when you plug these in, because if you push too much in the center, it's very easy to bend these connectors. You can unplug them and straighten them out if they get bent a little bit, but obviously that's never a good idea to put any kind of stress on them. So just be really careful. This is one of the things that I see quite often, and actually can cause a problem that you saw in the beginning of the video. That is having the connector slightly bent so it just doesn't completely connect to where you plug it in. You might get the screen to light up and have lines on it, vertical or horizontal. Or if it's the touch screen, you might have problems where the touch doesn't respond. So you can always go back and double check those, make sure they're nice and straight. All right, last thing we'll do is plug in the battery and replace the plate and the 2 screws. Then we can close it up, and we should have a working screen once again. If you found the video helpful, hit the like button, share it with your friends, post it to your favorite social network, or visit us on the web at gocellphonerepair.com. Thanks for watching.